Hello, this is the Block 9 assignment number 2, completing the square Google slide. Slide 6 and slide 7 are extra credit, and we all could use some extra credit. So I'm actually going to show you how you would do the extra credit, and if you do it, you get extra points. So I will give you twice the points. I believe this is worth 15 points. I'll give you 30 points. Okay. So let's take a look. How would we do the extra credit? So I told you that ideally, right? So ideally, completing the square method works best when there is a 1x squared and an even x. However, slide 6 and slide 7 might have something different. So for example, let's suppose that I have something like x squared plus 9x minus 11 equals 0. And I want to solve using completing the square. So remember that step 1 is that you have to get your x squares and your x's equal to a constant, a number. So I want to move this negative 11 over by adding 11. So x squared plus 9x equals positive 11. The next step, which is step 2, is I want to complete the square. So to complete the square, I take half the middle number and I square it. Well, the middle number is always a number in front of x. And in this case, this is the middle number right here, the 9. So half of 9, and then I'm going to square it. Now I'm going to keep it as a fraction. So I can't take half of 9 nicely, like half of 8 or half of 10. So half of 9 is 9 halves. And then when I square it, I get 81 over 4. So I want to make sure that when I take half the middle number and square it, I'm going to add this to both sides. So I'm going to add it to the left and I'm going to add it to the right. And when I do that, I get x squared plus 9x plus 81 over 4 equals 11 plus 81 over 4. So now on the left side, I want to write that as a perfect square. So on the left side, I want it to be a perfect square, and I want to combine the right. So on the left side, I go what times what makes x squared would be x times x. What times what makes, drop the middle sign, and what times what makes 81 over 4 would be 9 halves. And when I combine the right side, I need a common denominator. Well, the common denominator is 4, so it would be 44 over 4 plus 81 over 4. And when I combine them, I get a total of 125 over 4. The very next step is I want to solve for x. So I'm going to take the square root of both sides. So if I square root the left, I have to square root the right. And remember that you always have to put a plus or minus down after you take the square root. So it is going to be x plus 9/2 equals plus or minus. And now I have to make sure that I simplify the square root. So I'm going to simplify the square root of 125. And I'm going to simplify the 4. Well, 125 is 5 times 25. And 25 is 5 times 5. So what do I have a pair of that can come out? I can take out a 5 and I'm left with a 5. And the square root of 4 is 2 times 2. So what can I take out? I could take out a 2. And on the very last step, I'm going to solve for x. And so how do I solve for x? I move this positive 9/2 over by subtracting. So x equals negative 9/2 plus or minus 5 square root of 5 all over 2. So you have 3 of those problems, and then you have on the next slide 1 problem. And so I'm just going to show you really quickly so that, again, you can try to do the extra credit. I encourage you to do it. Okay, so here's the next example. So let's say if I have 2x squared plus 8x plus 10 equals 0. And I would like to solve using completing the square. Now, it's the exact same methods that we did earlier. There's one extra step. So this is an intro step. It's really important that your x squared term is 1. So you have to have a 1x squared. And this is not a 1x squared, it's a 2x squared. And that 2 is multiplying. So to get rid of it, I'm going to divide. Now, if I divide that by 2, I have to divide everything by 2. So I get x squared plus 4x plus 5 equals 0. Then you want to make sure that your x's are on the left and your constants are on the right. So we have x squared plus 4x equals negative 5. And then you want to complete the square. So we're going to take half the middle number and we square it. Well, half of 4 is 2 and 2 squared is 4. So I want to add 4 to both sides. Now on the left-hand side, I have my perfect square. X times x is x squared. My sign in the middle is a plus, and 2 times 2 is 4. And on the right-hand side, negative 5 plus 4 is negative 1. So what do I do now to solve for x? I take the square root of both sides because I'm trying to solve for x. So I got to get rid of this square by square rooting. And every time I take a square root, I always put plus or minus. The square root of 1 is 1, and because I'm taking a square root of a negative, it's imaginary. And the very final last step is I'm going to add 2. So x equals -2 plus or minus 1i. Hope this is helpful, not just in doing the homework, but trying those 4 problems, slide 6 and slide 7, that are extra credit. So this is slide 6, this is slide 7. Have a fantastic day.